Hello everyone, I'm Anandi. In this video, we are going to see what is authentication in Playwright and how do we implement Playwright authentication using Typescript. Take an example. In any application, if you want to perform any scenario, we must log in into the application. Yes. So I'm going to take an example of this demo Blaze web store. Here I can search an item, add item, then I want to check out, place an order. Okay. So before performing any of the scenario, we want to log in first. Let me log in. Fine. So we have logged in into the system. Maybe if I want to add an item, I can select an item, add to cart. Fine, it's added. Then if I want to place an order, clicking on the cart link and viewing the cart page, then we can place an order. We have to fill all the details and purchase it. So to perform two scenarios, that is add item and place order, for both of the scenarios, we must have logged in into the system. When we want to automate these two scenarios, we want to log in into the system. So every time we have to launch the application, enter the login detail, yes, enter the login detail and click on login button. Instead of doing this, in Playwright we have an option of storing the authenticated browser storage state in a file. And whenever we want to perform the scenario, when we launch the application, it will be in an authenticated state. So that is what called as an authentication. Instead of the authentication strategy chosen, this will likely to store authenticated browser state on the file system. An authentication routine will produce the authenticated browser state and save it in a file. Okay, where it will stay under the project playwright.auth file under the directory it will get stored. And later, test will reuse the state and start as a already authenticated. So if I want to add item, when I launch the browser, it will be already in the authenticated state. And if I want to place an order, when I launch the browser, the application will be already in the authenticated state. So how do we implement this? Let me start now. Already I have created a project, Playwright project, and installed Playwright in the folder. Now I'm going to use a global setup. Here I'm creating a file, global setup.ts file under the test folder, where I have included the steps to login into the application. So here I am launching the application and locating the login link. If you see here, the page has the login link. On click of it, it is displaying the login pop-up, entering the username, password and clicking on the login button. All this I have located the element, clicking on the button and verifying. After successful login, it is displaying the user. After successful login, it displays the username. Now I want to confirm. Once the login is successful, here we want to store this in a storage state. Storage state is a method which is the browser context. So in Playwright, browser context is nothing but in a browser, it will open many browser contexts like opening a browser in an incognito mode. So here we are storing the storage state, whatever the state currently we have it, the browser state, we are going to store it in a file. Okay? So here I have to pass in which location it has to store the file path. And here the storage state file I have declared it in the config file because I may use this storage state in a different scenario in a different script files. So whenever I want to get the path. So to access it, I have stored it globally at the config file. Playwright config.ts file, I have exported this as a constant, and where I want to store it is under the project. I will create a folder called auth folder. Under that folder, I will be creating a JSON file, user.json file. In the global setup, just we are launching the application, logging into the application, verify whether the user is logged in successfully, and maintain this state in a file using a method storage state storage file path I am using. Right? Now I am going to create a spec file for performing add item. So add item is one of the scenario. To perform add item, if I want to select any item, okay, I must have logged in. I have created one script where I want to launch the browser and add item to the cart. Okay, for that again, before starting the scenario, again I am verifying whether I am successfully logged in or not, and then I want to select an item and just click on the item, add to cart. Right? Simple scenario I am performing. But here, just we are launching the application. We are not logging into the application. But how do we configure this one? But when I launch the application, it must have been as logged in as an authenticated user. How do I configure this? Now, I'm going to the config file. In Playwright, in Playwright config file, we have a section called projects, where you want to launch which browser I want to test the application, where the execution will start. Okay. Here, I'm creating a setup name. Setup is the initial one I'm creating. Name project. The project as the setup project. Test match, which test I want to run it as part of the setup. I have created a global setup.ts which I want to run this. So initially, before starting any of the scenario, my global setup.ts file will get executed. After execution, which will store the storage state in a file. Fine. So let me do that now. So we have stored it in a storage state, and I want to perform only one scenario, that is add item scenario I want to perform. For that I am creating another project configuration. Here I am giving the name as a scenario name, add item, any name you can give here. Which scenario I want to perform? I want to perform an add item. Which test is has the corresponding steps? Add item, demo blazed or spec test, which will have the steps. And which is the dependency for this test? So before executing the spec file, which is the dependency? Setup is the dependency. In the setup, what I am doing, global setup, logging into the application and storage state I have maintained already. So now it will be ready now. It is setting the configuration. But when it is executing the test, I have to use the Chrome browser, and storage state as the storage state file I have to use it. Actually, this is use means for executing this test, what configuration I want to use it. I have to use it. Here I want to use the Chrome browser. So when it is launching that context, I want to have it with my storage state. Okay. So again, this path already we have defined here. Auth user.json. So what it will do, it will launch the Chrome browser, create a browser context with this storage state. In my add item, just before performing this scenario, just I have launched the page alone, and I'm verifying whether it is logged in successfully or not. Here we are not explicitly writing the login steps to perform. So let me run the script. How to run the script is, I have to run this add item. This is the scenario I want to perform. So to run this scenario, npx playwright.dev demo blade spec.ts file. Let me run this spec file. It is running two tests. First, it is running the global setup, launching the application, entering the details, login into the application. Then it is running our scenario, actual scenario. But when it is running the actual scenario, it was already loaded with the browser with the logged in user. So how it is this will generate a file, the global setup will generate a file under the folder, auth folder, which will have the logged in storage state. All the credentials will be here. And when I perform the actual scenario, on launching the page itself, it will be launched as a logged in user. And we can continue with the scenario. So similar to this one, we can create a number of scenarios. For any of the scenarios, no need to log in into the application every time. Instead, we will be creating a browser context with the storage state. So here, I want to use this browser, default Chrome browser with the storage state. From the file, it will read and load the state. So this feature will be helpful in case of performing many scenarios as a particular user. I want to log in as an admin and I want to perform many scenarios means instead of logging every time, we will log in only once and sequence of scenarios we can perform. If you want to see the report, log in into it, expected, everything it enter and actual scenario, add item, place order. When I log in, yes, the browser hooks was launching the page, launch the browser, launch the context, navigate and performing the scenario directly. Thank you everyone for watching this video.